Hello everyone, welcome to day 5 of our Advent Calendar countdown. Let's get this envelope open and see what we have. So it's a set of some nice dies here. So there are 3 flowers, a leaf, stamens, and actually 4 flowers, not 3. So I want to cut these out and I'm going to find some inks that coordinate with our paper pack. So I've grabbed my Catherine Pooler inks here and I've picked some colours that I thought might be close, and I've just dabbed a bit of ink onto a piece of paper and given it some time to dry off because the colour does lighten. And I'm going through just pulling out my creative cuts and holding them against the colour of the inks and trying to match up which colours work best. Now you see me here a little confused because that colour matched nicely and I accidentally grabbed the wrong colour earlier. But here we go. I've worked it out and just picking the last colour here. I'm looking for a match to the very darkest green that is in the papers, and there you can see it matches nicely to the Catherine Pooler spruce ink. So I'll put the colours I'm not using to the side. Now before I go ahead and pull the dies apart and cut them out, I thought I'd show you how I store most of my dies. So I've got some sticky back magnetic sheet and I'm simply measuring how big the die space required is, and then I'll trim that off of my sheet and then attach it to the card that was in the packaging for the dies. And I try to keep the packaging for the dies, that way I have the brand printed on there and the name of the die set as well on the back. So I've got my trusty little metal snips there, but these dies are very easy to get apart, so no actual need for them this time. So all my dies are separated. Now I'm going to make some custom coloured paper. So I've got a piece of watercolour cardstock and I've turned it over to the smoother side. I've spritzed it with some water and now I'm going to do some direct to paper with my ink blocks or ink pads. And that yellow you see there, I will show you the name of that again shortly, but I'm just going down, putting some of the colour onto the watercolour paper, and then I'm going to come back in with a little bit more water and give them a chance to run and let the pigment move, and you'll see that it gives you a nice variegated colourway or a colour effect to it by spraying the paper first and then pulling the ink over the paper. And with it being watercolour paper, the natural grooves in the paper lets the ink settle in the highs and lows of the paper. So once I've dried my paper off, I'm going to place my dies on, and the water in the paper is 99% been taken out. It is still just that little bit damp, which actually helps when you go to die cut the paper and just makes it that little bit easier for the dies to cut through the thicker and sometimes a little bit tougher watercolour paper. So I'm using my low tack tape, and it needs to be low tack because we don't want to pull any of the colour or the surface of the inked paper off when we remove our dies. So I'm just placing each of my dies back onto my magnetic sheet, and I will recycle or reuse my low tack tape there. And as you can see, the dies are popping out really nicely, and there is a nice variation to colour in each of those flowers. And I've decided I want to cut out the stamen part and the leaf a second time. And my plan is to take all of these and then give them some shaping with my tool in one, and you'll see me here. I'm going to swap out the slanted pick tool, and I'm putting in the largest ball tool, and I'm going to use that to curl up the center of my flower. And then just on this largest flower, I'm going to go around each of the petals on the back side and rub them over with the ball point. And this is going to give them a bit more dimension rather than sitting flat. It's the largest flower that I'll only do this to. You could do it to all the other flowers as well, but I've chosen just to do it to the largest flower for this flower. And to put the flower together, I'm going to go ahead and do all the shaping first, and then come along and do all my gluing second. Just finishing off with those stamens, and I want them to be really nicely cupped or tightly cupped for when they have to sit inside the center of the smallest petals. Gluing these on with just a small amount of glue, and I'm trying to make sure that each layer of petals is offset to the layer of petals below it. That way you can see all the layers nice and clearly, and you're also going to be able to see like an ombre effect with the colouring of each layer. Now I'm putting in my first layer of stamens, and then just making sure that's nice and tightly cupped so that the second layer has more height there. And I'm just going to use that little pick part of the tool. I just wanted to center that stamen layer just a little more. And here are the two leaves, and you can see the nice mottled effect that the way I inked my paper has given to each of the layers. Changing out my tool again, and that's because I'm going to come in with some tiny little gemstones and add one to the center. I'm hoping that somewhere in our advent calendar we might have some gems to use with our projects. So here will be a close-up look at all those colours in action and the dimension that you get when you add all the layers to make one flower. But you could, of course, use them individually and make lots of separate flowers. That's it for today. See you again tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.